If you want to get into Mac.Rob, Melbourne High, Nossal, or Suzanne, Cory, then in this video, I'm going to share the 2 key reasons why most students don't improve at all or very little in their selective entry preparation. And really the reason why I know this is because this is what happened to me. So the first time I tried to get into a selective school, I did what most people did, tutoring, mock exams, practice questions, went to workshops, but I didn't improve very much. And I went into the exam and I didn't do very well. And I didn't get selected into a selective school. The next year though, I changed my approach and I was able to do well. And there was even sections where I went from getting below average in the first year up to top 10% or superior in the second year. And so in this video, I'm going to share the 2 key changes that work for me, but have also worked for hundreds of other students that I've helped prepare for this exam in the last 12 months. And so what are these 2 key reasons that lead to most students not improving in their preparation? And you might be wondering, well, why do most people not improve? That doesn't really make sense. The reality is only about 15% or so of students who sit the exam get into a selective school. But a lot of people do preparation. A lot of people do tutoring, do practice questions, do mock exams. For example, at some mock exams, there's thousands of people there before the exam. And so a lot of people do preparation. But most of them, that preparation doesn't lead them to the result that they want. And there's 2 big factors behind that. The first factor is exam strategy. And so think to yourself right now, in the 5 sections of this exam, is there any sections where you feel not too confident? You feel like, oh, I'm maybe a little bit bad at that section. There's definitely something that a lot of people say to me. Generally, it's in one of 2 categories. Either you're pretty confident in maths, generally you're good at maths at school, and therefore things like writing, having to write 2 pieces in such a short period of time is overwhelming. It feels stressful. Or maybe for reading, you think, reading, you just do a bit of reading. How do you actually improve in that? Or verbal reasoning, you think these words that they're testing me on are so advanced, you need such a strong vocab, how can you possibly do well? Plus all the other random questions they have. That's kind of one category. The other category is maybe you're fairly good at English overall, but maths you find hard. You're finding all these topics, the maths questions, the fact that they're often harder than what you'd see at school. They're testing things you might not have learned. They're phrasing the questions in weird ways with all these graphs and charts. You just think, oh, how can I actually get better at maths? I'm bad at maths, or I'm bad at English. Key thing is, ultimately, the best way to think about this exam is not I'm bad at this section, I'm good at this section, but for every single section of the exam, there's a number of question types that come up year after year. So for example, in maths, how many things can they assess? Can they assess 1 million things? No. Can they assess 1 thing? No. They assess about 10 to 15 different topics. Now within those 10 to 15 different topics, there's maybe 2 or 3 different ways that they can assess those topics. And so if you slowly work your way through, if you said, okay, I'm not very confident in maths, but there's 15 different topics, I'm only getting 40% now, but that still means I know 40% of questions. Maybe for 4 of those topics out of 15, I'm actually pretty confident in those. Between now and the exam, I just need to work through those other 11 topics, learn them over time, just focus on 1 per week. Then come exam day, I'm going to be ready. And how do you improve in those topics? You learn exam strategies. You learn proven strategies that when you see the question, you can apply the strategy and it allows you to get the question correct, but also get it correct quickly. So that's really the key thing. If you want to improve, what you really want to focus on doing is for each section of the exam, identify all the different topics that can appear, all the different ways they can test those different topics, and have an exam strategy, a proven method that you can apply to the question that guarantees you get it correct, but also you get it correct quickly. Quickly meaning most people takes them 2 minutes, it takes you 30 seconds. So it cuts down that time significantly. This is the key. Because the reality is if you walk into the exam and you don't know the different topics that are being assessed in each section of the exam, which is what most people do, and you don't have exam strategies for each of those different topics and the different ways it can be tested, then you are not going to be feeling too confident. That was me for the first time. I didn't really know exactly what was going to come up. I had a bit of an idea, but I didn't know for sure. I hadn't broken it down so well. And I didn't have exam strategies for every type of question, that's for sure. Then that's going to really hold you back. Now, of course, there is some questions that can come up in the exam which you're not prepared for, but you can have exam strategies for those as well. Maybe you have a quick look at it, and then if you're confident, you answer it quickly. Otherwise, you leave it until the end because you only need to get about 80 to 85% to maybe 90% to do really well on this exam. And so you're going to leave any tricks, any issues to later on. Or maybe you have a whole exam strategy around how you approach questions, which make you feel a bit overwhelmed or flustered because they're new. So that's another thing you can do. So key thing, secret number 1, most people don't improve because they just see the section as I'm bad at this, I'm bad at that, and they don't break it down. They don't break it down into maths, There's 10 to 15 different topics. I need to figure out what those topics are. I need to learn exam strategies for every single type of question that I can predict will come up. So if there's ones that I can't predict, well, then I can deal with them in the best way I can. That's one thing. But then also that allows you to answer the questions much faster. So if there is surprises, you can handle them and you'll have more time for them. So that's reason number one. Now, reason number two is mock exams themselves. Now, a lot of people do mock exams for this exam. Everyone knows it's important. Most parents, they rush, they buy practice questions, and mock exams is one of the first things they do. But again, a lot of people sit mock exams, but most people don't improve very much. This happened to me when I was in year 11. For one subject, I sat 50 mock exams. Everyone the year before who'd sat about 20 to 25 had got perfect scores. I didn't do very well. I was towards the middle or bottom of my class. Why was that? It was because I didn't extract enough value from each of the mock exams I did. I did them, but I didn't really learn from them. And that's what happens with most people. So what happens right at the start of our program, for example, is people are really eager. They'll race through and they'll do like 3 maths mock exams on the first day. They'll get the same score on all of them. They'll make the same mistakes on all of them. And so to some extent, the second 2 mock exams were a complete waste of time. What they should have done is sat the first mock exam, broken down, these are the questions I got wrong. These are the questions I got right. What categories were they in? So coming back to this, what topics were they in? What exam strategies do I need to learn before I sit another mock exam to make sure I don't make the same mistake again? And then maybe just focus on one topic. Master that before you sit the next mock exam. You don't have to fix every single problem because there might be lots of things to learn at the start, but at least find one area where you struggled that was probably led to the biggest loss of marks. Master that area before you sit another mock exam. Because the key thing I always say is it's fine to make a mistake once on a mock exam, but once you identify this is a section I want to focus on, you should spend a period of time mastering it, learning the exam strategy before you sit another mock exam. Otherwise, you'll just sit them again and again and again. And there's some people who sit 10, 20, 30 mock exams. They don't really see much improvement because they don't go through that process. And so if you had to ask yourself, how long should you spend reviewing the mock exam compared to how long it actually takes to do it? I'd say you probably want to spend about the same amount of time. If a maths mock exam takes you 30, 35 minutes, you probably want to review it for about 30 to 35 minutes. If the writing section's 40 minutes, you probably want to review the 2 pieces you wrote for about 40 minutes to extract as much value as you can. Because most of the learning comes after the mock exam, not during it. During the mock exam, that's kind of just getting the data available. And then afterwards, you need to review it, extract all the learnings you can, and fix one key area. I wouldn't try and fix too many things at once before you sit another one. Now, the way that I like to do this later on, when I figured out how to study a bit more, I didn't actually do this when I sat the selective entry exam because I hadn't figured this out yet, but I did it in year 12 for one subject after I went through that experience of sitting a lot of mock exams and not improving. And the result of that was I went from doing 50 mock exams and getting an average or below average score, sitting about 20 for one of my subjects in year 12 and being in the top 30 out of 40,000 students. And it was mainly because of the way I extracted so much value from each mock exam. So if you look at this here, this is what we get students in the program to use. I'll include the link below this video, but it's called the mistakes journal. And so for every exam you sit, you want to write down obviously what section. The section of the exam. Looks like there's a duplicate here. The overall result. So maybe I'd say, okay, this is maths. The overall result was 18 out of 35. And then you want to write down all the questions you got incorrect here, the exact question. So I would write down some ratios question, some surds question, some linear equations question, and most importantly, what type of question it falls into. So maybe this is a geometry one. This is a geometry one. This is a geometry one. This is ratios. This is linear equations, so on. And then I can see, a lot of geometry. I lost 6 marks to geometry. And that's where this comes in, your overall takeaways. You can write down your strengths. These topics I was strong in. These areas I wasn't weak in, and you want to have one main area to focus on. So I'm going to focus on geometry. I'm going to learn all the exam strategies I need. So when I see these questions, I'm ready to improve. And so that's really the best approach for these types of questions, for reflecting on exams, to extract the most value from it. Go through all the incorrect questions, note down what type they came from, leave any comments. Maybe this one was a silly mistake. This one I just didn't know what I was doing. This one, the wording confused me, so you can know why you got it wrong. But then also, most importantly, what topics. When I say overall takeaways, it's around the topics. What topics did you do well in? What topics are you confident with in that section of the exam, but what topics do you need to improve? Do you need to learn exam strategies? And so if we go back to what we looked at the start of this video, what are the 2 key reasons why most students don't improve in their selective entry preparation? Number 1, it's because they don't learn exam strategies for all the questions they can predict that will appear on the exam. And the second reason is people just do mock exams and they don't really learn anything from them. Sitting the mock exam is a very small part of it. You need to spend just as long afterwards reflecting, extracting as much value from it so you can find areas to work on to master before you sit another mock exam. If you do these 2 key things, all the preparation you do is going to actually improve your scores. And as long as you can go through this a few times, you can sit enough mock exams, figure out the areas where you're weak, learn the exam strategies, and continue that process a few times, you are going to be able to improve. There's no reason why anyone can't do well on this exam if you use this process. But if you just do random things, then it's going to be hard to improve. So good luck. Leave any questions in the comments below this video. I'll leave a link to the mistakes journal as well. And otherwise, good luck in your preparation.